Hi, my name is Katie Kuneth, and I'm with the LTV Community Intern Project. Today I'm here with Bess Rattray, an East Hampton born and raised local who founded the Anchor Society here in our village. Thank you for meeting with me today.
Thanks, Katie. I'm super glad to be doing this with you.
To begin, can you tell us a little bit about the origins of the Anchor Society?
Yeah. Well, the point of the Anchor Society is we're trying to address problems in the village with there not really being shops that people want to go to and sort of a lack of life in the village. It came about because, well, anybody who grew up around East Hampton is aware that there's been something kind of wrong there for years, I think, I grew up right on Main Street, in the school year, walking up and down, and when I was young, in the 80s, it was a vibrant, beautiful, active community with all kinds of, ice cream and newsstands and every possible kind of business that you'd actually want to go to. And people were always filling the sidewalks, and it was just a classic Main Street. Anybody my age watched the village kind of become more and more of a off-season wasteland, very quiet, fewer mom and pops, all those things that have sort of become cliches. So the origin is really just that I'm from here, and like everybody, I'm worried about what's happening in the village. I'm a journalist though, and I edit a magazine called East for the East Hampton Star, and about 4 or 5 years ago, we decided that it would be funny to call other resort communities, literally like dial Aspen, dial Nantucket, dial Martha's Vineyard, and ask them, do you have this problem too? Lots of luxury stores, they shut down in the winter and your Main Street becomes a wasteland. And are you doing anything about it? We were seeking solutions from communities like ours. So we actually picked up and called chambers of commerce at different resort communities around the country, did a bunch of research, and well, what we found was that there was something being done in Nantucket, which has a lot in common with the Hamptons in a lot of ways. And what had happened there is a group had come together. There's a lot of wealth in Nantucket, like there is here, and some of those people decided to take some of that wealth and invest in property, like Main Street business property, in order to support businesses that serve the community better. So that's the idea. The Anchor Society is, our motto is fostering commerce that serves community. And so our overarching goal that came out of this newspaper article and this long interest in the village is we want to have a general store. We've been almost 2 years now, a year and a half, been seeking a building, the right building to create a sort of an anchor business for the village that would have all those things you can't buy in the village now. But even maybe more important, that would bring people in, that you'd hang out and have a coffee, that the whole community could use as a gathering place. And so that's how it started. Yeah, long-winded answer.
Yeah. I had read on your website that you use Sag Harbor Village as a great model of what you wanted to go to, because I know that, or I believe that most of those businesses are locally owned and they're open mostly all year round.
Yeah, that's
So,
true. Yeah, Sag Harbor, people always say, why is Sag Harbor still that kind of busy, bustling Main Street and East Hampton isn't? And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. In a funny way, I think it might be because East Hampton just got started down this road to the super high luxury real estate market sooner. So you might say that Sag Harbor's headed the same way, but it's just a decade behind. Possibly. I think there's a lot of other things at play. I think it's possible that more of the buildings remain owner-operator, so the person who's running a business owns the building. And a lot of the buildings in Sag Harbor Village have apartments upstairs as well. So there's sort of a built-in hustle and bustle of people coming and going. They've managed to maintain a mix for that reason. And that's kind of what we're trying to help bring back to East Hampton, is more of a mix. So it's not just the luxury. It's things you need, things you want, places to go,
yeah. Do you think the fact that the luxury stores are existing in our village is kind of scaring like local retail owners away, in a sense of competition?
Hmm. You know what? I don't think that the luxury businesses are necessarily bad neighbors or something. A lot of those are wonderful businesses too, and maybe they serve a purpose to help in tourism in some way, or there was a customer for that. I think it's more that it, if you own a building and you can rent it at a higher and higher rate, the people who can afford it are gonna be a bigger and bigger company. So I think the reason why we don't have mom and pops is really just that they can't afford it, plain and simple. And I'm not saying it's not the fault of the person who owns the building, you know, anybody who owns a building and is in that business has every right. And it's very understandable that if they knew they could get a certain amount per square footage, they're gonna ask it. You know, it's only fair. It's not a negative on them. It's just that that creates escalation in the cost of having a store in the village. And it's a long time now since the mom and pops were mostly chased out. There's still a few awesome local businesses, you know, we don't forget them, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
So, do you think as these luxury stores are here and they're looking like they're here to stay, do you think
Yeah.
that there's any way that we can get them more involved in our community, whether it is through being a part of like the fairs maybe at Herrick Park throughout the winter or throughout the
Mhm.
year, to make it feel like more of a sense of community, even though they are those chain
Yeah.
stores?
That's such a good question. It's hard to engage the bigger and more international company is, it's sort of harder to engage the decision maker. You know, the store manager, if you went to them and said, "Hey, we're having Halloween trick or treating, do you want to participate?" The store manager's not going to be able to say yes or no. They're going to have to go up the chain.
Right.
And so it becomes harder to engage them in that way. I know a lot of those luxury good stores have goodwill. It's not like that they don't. You know, Prada at Christmas last year had hot chocolate outside for the lighting of the Christmas tree. It, so it's not that they don't want to be a part of the community. I think we're trying to explore other ways to engage them and maybe helping being part of the solution. We've got a program that we're working on as a stepping stone towards the general store. And that is, we're soon to announce, we haven't announced it yet, a program where we're helping a group of business owners in the village create winter pop-up shops in the off-season. So something like 44% of the stores are shut down in the winter. Some of those are altogether empty, and some of them are just only open from, you know, May through September, October. So that's part of the problem, is a lot of those really high-end luxury goods stores, it's not worth their while to be open half the year. So we're working on a program to have winter pop-ups of stores that people would love and need and frequent in the off-season, and that would be in partnership with, sometimes if there were a master tenant, with that master tenant. So we're hoping to, fingers crossed if all goes well, engage some of them in that in a positive way.
So those pop-ups being in the luxury stores like space?
Well, we don't, you know, it's a whole very complicated negotiation that it has to do with the landlord. Some of them have a master tenant who, most of them are, there's quite a few regional stores also in East Hampton. A lot of them are national or international, and we're hoping that we can engage at least a couple of them in participating in this. They'd be hosting a local business or a local nonprofit that would have a retail store, and we haven't really announced this yet, as I said, but and so they would be participating in that way, so that it sort of creates good and community year round. And I think it would be positive for them as well as a brand, and for their, just, you know, fostering positivity towards them as well as members of the community, like you're saying.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We're working on it. We're hoping to have an announcement soon.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, yeah. We're excited about it, yeah.
Yeah, because I know a lot of, or I can think of a couple of examples of stores who have had to relocate because of like higher rent issues.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know
Yeah.
where you stood on that, or if you thought that was logical. Obviously, in the landlord sense, you said if they can raise the rent, they are going to.
Yeah.
But also in the sense of the local owners being like, oh, maybe we have to like stand down.
Yeah, you know, I think part of the thing is, part of the dynamic is there are still some local owners of buildings in town, and I do think that they're more likely to be a bit more altruistic, to keep a tenant in there who's a mom and pop there. I know a couple business owners or building owners in the village who do that. You know, they're not renting it out to the highest bidder, they're renting it out to an old tenant who maybe has been there years, and that's really a positive. Anyway, I've lost my train of thought. Give me another question.
Lastly, what message do you have for other community members who share the same passions as you
Oh,
about our village and the future of it?
that's a good question too. I feel like everyone's just accepted the status quo. Everyone just says, "Oh, nobody shops in East Hampton," as if it were over, as if nothing positive could come out of it. But if you look at other communities, people are doing something about it. People are doing off-season pop-ups in resort communities around the country, or like as in Nantucket with this group Remain Nantucket, they've actually pitched together and bought buildings to bring, say, a bookstore, a bakery, vital businesses back to their main street. There's no reason why East Hampton can't do that too. I don't know why we're behind in this, but we are in a funny kind of a way. You know, we can make a change towards the positive. It's not just a one-way street. And I think, you know, when you look at Sag Harbor, people often compare East Hampton to Sag Harbor and throw their hands up in the air and they say, oh, well, Sag Harbor has tons of restaurants and it's because they have a better septic system and therefore East Hampton is never going to be like Sag Harbor. But all those things are addressable. We can get more restaurants in East Hampton. We can foster a better mix of different types of stores in East Hampton. We can come up with innovative programs like pop-ups in the off-season. We can get together as a community and buy a building and have a general store. Those things are all doable. If other towns can do it, we can too. So that's what I'd say to people is don't be negative about this. Realize that positive change can happen. All you have to do is sort of stand up and do it, and that's what we're trying to do.
Right.
So I'm really so glad that you're taking on this topic, because it really matters, you know?
Yeah. It matters to me as well because I remember when Prada moved in and when
Yeah.
Cartier moved in, and it's a very different vibe walking down Main Street, especially in the summertime, like going out with my friends, and then in the wintertime getting food in between like sports and school. It's like a ghost town because all of these stores are boarded up.
So true.
It's really a shame.
It's so true. When I was in the East Hampton Middle School, we were allowed to leave the school and go to the village for lunch, and we would all go to Brothers for Pizza, or we'd go to Eddie's Luncheonette. And there were a lot more places where kids could go. And so there's been a lot of change. And it does feel, I know a lot of people feel negatively towards some of those designer brands because most of us can't afford to shop there. So it's very alienating. But my message also is that they're part of the mix. They can be part of this healthy community, you know, especially if we can partner with them in this kind of a program. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we can turn it around. And I'm also hopeful that with this kind of conversation, the future of Sag Harbor, for example, isn't the same as what our future became, you know,
Right.
that things can happen there to protect what they have and preserve what they have. So
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
thank
I-
you, Katie.
I hope you all enjoyed this segment brought to you by the LTV Community Intern Project. Again, my name is Katie Kuneth, and thank you guys so much for joining me today.